It's not every day we have the opportunity to explore the mind of an award-winning filmmaker, sound designer, editor, visual artist, events coordinator, and a university associate lecturer who educates fresh and passionate talent. Please welcome Andi Reiss, who actually goes back and forth between New York and the UK, Oxford. So Andi, thank you so much for being here today. What an honor.
Cassie, hi, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure. Thanks for having me, both of you. Great to see you again, Joseph, and lovely to see you, Cassie. Thanks so much.
Andi, you know what? Thank you so much for even taking the time, because you're in Oxford, and right now the time is
Oxford, UK. It's 3 minutes past 10 p.m.
So thank you so much for deciding to stay dressed and not have your PJs on. Yeah. And I just want to say that when I speak today, I speak for all stylists all around the world, to be honest with you, because I think we're all going through this together. But first off, before we get into the real nitty gritty of your talent, which is important to hear and certainly document, I would like to go back. Like, tell me, this was not a given gift that you did not go to school for, or did you at a young age feel like you wanted to shoot film? Or, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I got to be really honest with you. Back when we were little, there wasn't really the technology that we have now, right? Is it fair for me to say? So back then, what would it have been that turned you on to film, directing, etc.?
Well, my grandfather had given me a Super 8 camera when I was about 9-10 years old. And I had been making some short films because I just found it interesting and fascinating. And I like, you know, I like getting, my very first film actually was my brother, who was 2 years younger than me and is now a Southern Baptist priest in Denver, Colorado, very close to Cassie. It's, my very first film I made was a reenactment of the Wimbledon tennis final of 1979. And I dressed him up as John McEnroe, and I dressed myself up as Jimmy Connors. And I would shoot from one end, and then I'd run and shoot from the other end. And then a friend of mine who had an old Steinbeck editing suite, we would literally, we'd cut it up together. So that was and then I did a whole bunch of other things. There was some exciting Cold War Russian spy who lived in the quaint old English village that I was living in at the time. And he wanted to come back and be buried. I won't bore you too much with that. And I got involved in Super 8 and film and photographs and Polaroid photography as well, which was really, that was like magic. Polaroid photography, you know, click, and wow, this extraordinary color little slide came out of, and there it was, magic before your eyes. But I never really had any ambitions to become a filmmaker. I wanted to become a human rights attorney. And I was so, yeah, I so wanted to become a human rights attorney. You know, I joined Human Rights Watch and UNHCR, and I was, you know, looking at the World Health Organization when I was like 14, 15. But something happened. I'm not going to bore you with that. And I ended up sort of just dropping out of school and sticking, you know, 2 fingers up at the educational establishment for quite a long time. So yeah, so my attorney aspirations were scuppered, or I scuppered them, and that's how I got into filmmaking.
Wow, that's interesting.
That is very interesting. So with that being said, what was your first film that you did? And did you enter it, or was it just a first film and then you went on to another one and then it took your 3rd or 4th to enter it? What did that look like, that process?
Well, no, I'd made 3 or 4 short films, Cassie, but the very first film of any note was, this is completely true. There is a magazine, a very famous magazine in the UK called Reader's Digest. You don't have that over there, do you?
You're being funny.
Yeah. So It was one of my favorite magazines, and the last page, this was a long time ago, they would have a section called Local Hero, and it was about people who, it wasn't grand celebrities and the good and the gracious. It was about these ordinary guys doing extraordinary things, local heroes. And I remember sitting reading this one local hero, and it was about this chap who was he was a miner, and he had become injured in the mines in the north of England. But he'd gone, after he'd retired or semi-retired, he had gone and he had driven a truck all the way from Sheffield in the north of England, full of medical supplies, toys, and food, all the way to a children's radiation rehab center in Chernobyl in the Ukraine.
Oh my God.
And this must have been about 15 years after the nuclear explosion of, yeah, about 15 years. It was 86. So this was around 1999. And I read this story and I thought, wow, this is an amazing guy. And I'd love to make a film about this because this is like a really, really cool story. So I pitched up, literally me and a sound guy, and we jumped in his van and we went, you know, for 4 days on the road with all this stuff in his truck, all the way to Chernihiv, which is very near Chernobyl in the Ukraine. And we made this extraordinary little documentary about his children's charity. What we didn't know is we were about to be embarking on making an even bigger project, because we went on the very last day of us being there. We had a fixer. We had a guy who was taking us around, and we went to a farm which was just on the edge of the exclusion zone by the nuclear reactor, and it was crazy. You could hear noise in the air, in the earth, and you could feel the bitter taste when you were like, you know, just licking a flower or something. And then potatoes, he was showing these genetically modified potatoes. It was all completely, you know, awful, all completely contaminated. So we went back and we started interviewing the farmer. And the farmer, we were drinking the vodka, it's, you know, habitual, the pleasantries. And the more he was drinking, this was like 10:30 in the morning, the more he was telling us about this, the government and how the farm can't sell outside of the area. And we had a much bigger film on camera than we ever thought we had initially done. And I came away from that thinking, wow, this is, you know, we're going to go home tomorrow thinking this is a political documentary, not just a charity film. And then me and my sound man, we were jumped upon and mugged, and he was severely beaten up. And yeah, all our footage was stolen, and we were in the police cell, and we were deported. So that was a real shame. But that was my first film, and that was my first experience of one, filmmaking abroad, and two, getting deported. And I've been deported 3 or 4 times before since.
Well, you know what? I think you put a different light on deported, but that is a really, really interesting. How old were you then?
I was 28. So I wasn't a baby.
So that never became a film because they took it from you.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
But it didn't stop you from doing what you want to do. So maybe it encouraged you even more.
As everything does, Cassie. Everything, one thing leads to another, one experience leads to another, good or bad. And in my case, it's bitter and bona fide experience. You know, you just get through it. You just get through it, and you move on around, and you take opportunities where you can, and you learn. I've learned on the job a lot. I mean, most of what I've learned, I did go to film school for a little while, but most of what I've learned has been about someone saying, "Can you do this?" And I say, yeah, of course I can. Of course I can. I've no idea whether I can do it or not. And then you do a bit of research, and you give it a go.
You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, Joseph, you're thinking back to beauty school. It's the students, you know, every career is like that, but you know, we really do, in our career, we really do a lot of the learning on the job. Yeah. And just saying yes and then figuring it out is, I believe, the best way to learn and the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the same with anything. But when it comes to photography and for lighting, which is completely immersive in hair and fashion, etc., you simply can't learn unless you're there with other people and you're taking ideas and inspiration from other people as well.
Yes.
It's not textbook stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. I mean, it's too bad that in our career of artistry, there isn't a course within the course that does help with lighting. Because I will tell you something, not that this is about me, because it's about you, but one of the questions I was telling Cassie I was asked today from one of my students in the school is, well, what other directions can you go in this industry? Maybe I should have been, gone to school just for makeup. And I could only say, I can't tell you what I'm thinking right now, because you could work in film, you could work as a stylist on the set of an editorial shoot, you could do hair in a salon, you could own your own salon, there's just such a lot that you could do. This to me is something that really comes close to where our career is, because I have been blessed to not only meet you and know you, but I've also been behind the camera guy while I've been involved in like big shoots, right? And it's intriguing. It's fascinating.
It is.
So,
and to tack on to what you're saying, Joseph, too, right now, especially like you said, with social media being so huge and everybody's Zooming. So the lighting in that, like learning, it just goes so much deeper too.
it does. And I want, go ahead, Andy.
Actually, this session, when it comes to lighting and lighting phases, will be as useful for students as it might be for anyone who happens to have a laptop computer sitting in front of them and needs to light themselves a bit better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a Zoom world too.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, what we're going to talk about a little bit about today is none of these very fundamental lighting setups need to be done with anything other than a ring light, a flashlight, and or a reflector. That's it. It's simple stuff.
Well, let's go right into it, because what I want you to share right now, if you can, because I want to come back, because you have been recognized and awarded for a lot of films that you have done. And I really want you to talk about that. But right now, can you dive into lighting? Can you just dive into lighting, and can you share and give tips to, first off, stick with, I want to see this in two parts if possible, Andy, if I can absorb from you your knowledge in humanoids, like a human model that they'd be shooting, because they do a lot of that too, or a mannequin, because they work on their mannequins a lot, and sometimes their art is on there and they need to show it. So could you give us kind of like your take on both of those individuals as a canvas for novice or beginners?
Yeah, I mean, for beginners, I completely appreciate that you'd be working on a head in respect of the hair. I don't think that should necessarily mean that you can't light that mannequin head for a portfolio and not understand or appreciate or employ some photographic techniques. Very, very simple lighting techniques, which only exist, and there are 6 of them, which we could go through a little bit today. They only exist because they create drama.
Yeah.
And for example, you have split lighting where the face is just lit from one side. It's arguably more interesting what you see in the shadows than what it is in the light. And that's an age old. I mean, Hitchcock told us that as a filmmaker. And this dates back to the 30s and 40s of film noir. or the Hollywood classics of film noir. It's what's in the shadows is arguably more important than what's in the light. Now, of course, that doesn't make an awful lot of sense to a hairdresser or a colorist necessarily. However, if you are creating a huge amount of shadow on one side of that face, and then you're lighting a very defined piece of a haircut and or color, and depending on where you've lit and put your lights, then it creates drama and it creates intensity. And you know, with due respect, I've seen a few of the Naha entries from this year and before, and they're amazing pieces of hair work, but really boosted by the exemplary photography, which comes with it.
Right.
But so understanding photography and understanding lighting for a hairdresser and a stylist is important. But this is really something, as you said, Cassie, earlier on, we're all taking photographs of everything at any time of the day or night, and we're all posting them up there. So everything is being expected to be either really good or mediocre becomes acceptable.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a part of all of this where mediocrity is becoming acceptable, but that can't, and that can be the case when when you're doing a selfie for brunch, but not when you're working. Not when you've got your mannequin head on, or and your stylist beanie on. And so understanding very, very simple fundamentals of photography and lighting will really help. And all of these little things can be done with a smartphone, a ring light, a reflector, and or a flashlight. Very, very simple stuff.
Do you have any examples of that, Andy? Like what?
I do. I'm going to share my screen now for you, Cassie and Joseph. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yep.
What I've coined the 6 faces of photography. These are fundamentals, and the thing is, all of your students, I hope, will look at this and say, okay, this actually isn't rocket science at all. This is just very simple. I can see exactly what is going on here. I know how to light that. Now, the thing is, they might well know how to light this intuitively, and if they can, great. But just understanding very, very simple techniques will help them get these looks. And then when you suddenly realize that these looks are so simple to create, and yet they all are so different, they do create intensity, drama in very different ways. And obviously these are focusing on face, but you can focus on hair and facial structure and color and cut. Color is sculpturing, cutting is sculpturing. So you're just lighting the sculpture of the hair more than the face. But it's very, very simple. And we have 6 little samples. This is called split lighting. This is so simple. You put the light on one side of your subject's face and you point it onto their cheek, and the other side is essentially in shadow.
So there's no lighting over there at all.
No lighting over there at all. And the closer you take that light source into where your head or your person is, the more intense the light side will be, and the more intense the dark side will be. And that's
I've got to pause you. I've got
questions too.
I've got to pause you. That, my friend, I could say, okay, I'm done now. Thanks. That was really interesting. That was cool. I mean, you're right, Andy. It is simple. But what I just took away from what you said is that we try to get everything 360, that it's perfect. But when you said that objects in the shadow can be more interesting, that I love.
So what it is, sorry, Cassie, go on.
No, I just have a real quick question. So does that mean, so obviously split lighting, are you going to bring your ring light like right here? Or your phone? Is that what that means?
You take your ring light and you put it literally on the ear or just in front of the ear, maybe a foot or 2 foot away.
Got it.
And all you're doing here is, and here's the trick, and this is, everyone knows this, but
Well,
nobody's interested in what's going on in the studio or the salon. The only thing that anyone needs to be interested in is what's in that frame.
right.
Yeah.
And you can put a candle, a flashlight, a cigarette lighter, anything. It doesn't matter, as long as that light source shows within that frame. So you're literally taking one lamp, one ring light, you're taking it to the side of the face, a couple of feet away. The lighter the light, the darker the dark. There'll be more drama in the darkness, and therefore people will focus and their eyes will focus in.
Yeah, I love that, Andi.
I do too.
Andi, as much as you may think that's subtle, I think that I'm 50 in the industry for 40 years, take a lot of pictures. I never thought of it like that, but I will now. I'm almost excited to go take a picture of someone. Joy's in trouble when she gets home. She'll be like, get that damn ring light out of my face. No, I love this.
With the black and white too. I mean, the black and white really shows the
it.
light.
Yeah.
And obviously black and white is not going to be working too much for colorists in that sense. But you can still employ, and in actual fact, all of these very, very simple lighting techniques that I'm going to run through today, they all come from film noir. They all come from the history of 20s, 30s, 40s, and early 50s film noir. And film noir is a genre that is just known for dramatic light, shade, and contrast. The drama being in the shadow. So
let me ask you a question. What did you just call that genre?
Film noir.
The genre is film noir.
And is that only done in black and white then, because it was the 20s, the 30s?
No. That's the great thing. It's gone on. Its influence has gone on. Sin City, Blade Runner, are classic, great examples of 80s, 90s, noughties film noir in color.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
But Scarface is a great. Mean Streets is a great film noir shot in color. Mm. So these photos are black and white, but you can employ the same techniques. But it's simple: light, really close, and the further you take that light out, the less dramatic it becomes on both sides.
Excuse me, there's one thing I forgot to say at introducing you. Any of you that are watching this that don't have a piece of paper and pen, please get something to write this down, because I am going to town writing this down, because this is really good food.
And I think the movie thing is very important too. I wrote down the movies that he recommended. So, and now you're not just watching a movie. I think we're taking these brains and having them look at it in a different way. Instead of just sitting watching the movie, there are things that they're looking for that can benefit them within photography. It's incredible. Thank you.
That's a really good point, Cassie, because and I love the fact that colorists, not that I know much about coloring in hair, but I love the fact that color is everywhere now. But when you look back to the era that we've just been talking about, color wasn't there. Color was there in their sort of primary modes of the blonde and the brunette and the redheads, and that's where these great actresses got those nicknames. But a lot of it was black and white photography. But that doesn't mean that the density of the hair and the light and shade was not not thought about when creating that dramatic intensity. So
Right.
going back and watching these old film noir pieces of work, you could, as hairdressers and stylists, you could learn a lot about how to photograph
Wow. Wow,
your
wow, 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 wow. What else you got for us? What else you got for us?
Yeah, cute. Let's see more.
moving on. This is loop lighting, and loop lighting is really, again, you're taking that that light source not from 90 degrees, which is on that one side of the face, and you're just taking that light source around by 45 degrees. Okay,
Okay. Yep.
that's
Yep.
a less dramatic look, but
Yep.
and therefore more of a natural look.
Wow.
However,
Has such softness on that one side where there's just that slight shadow.
absolutely, and if you have got color and cut sculpture on that side, that would be the lighting you would want to potentially use. And of course, all these bits of lighting, they're used particularly for, you know, the cloth that you're working with or the head that you're working with. But
Can I ask a question? Can I ask, where do you think, it's almost like I see like a north, south, east, west, and then a diagonal line that crosses through, just like when we're cutting hair, right? Or the diagrams. But
Yeah.
where do you think loop came from?
It's a good question, but I suppose what it's doing is you're looping through the shadow and the light, so it's not quite as contrasted.
Okay, all right, got
The
it.
shadow and the light loops itself around, and you can kind of see that on the bangs, I think, of that.
Her head too, like you can see like there's an aura around her silhouette, like a
Yep,
loop
yep.
creates.
Yeah, I
that.
got it. I like that. I like that. I like that.
A good
Very
analogy
good, Andy.
in the north, south, east, and west as well.
Mhm.
Nice job. This is really, really, really valuable information. I love it. What else you got for us?
Something a little bit softer. Rembrandt, the famous Dutch painter, very, very famous way of creating a V. You can see a V in that girl's left cheek. Can you see that little V of light?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
that is very, very, very famous portrait photographic technique. And this involves 3 light sources, a hair light, which is a light coming from the top, and a fill light, and what's known as a key light. And again, flashlight, reflector, and ring is all you would need. But that just gives a little bit of definition on the left side of her face, which you can then see on the right side. You've got much more light, and that's lit. All the drama that you will be doing in your cut or your color that you wanted to expose would need to be on that side, on the right side of her face.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you again. So you've got a light above. What does that light look like? Is that your ring light above, or is that a hand light? What?
It's actually called a hair light. And it doesn't matter what kind of light it would be. The only light it shouldn't be is a candle, because the wax might fall on her head. But any light source up there.
Okay.
That just allows the portrait, the mannequin head to sort of pop out of the background.
Okay.
Then you've got a key light, which is coming in from the right side of her face. That's where her face is illuminated.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
I think
key light, because not everybody understands your phenomenal verbiage. What is a key light? What does that look like?
Again, it doesn't look like anything. It could be a candle. It could be a flashlight. It could be a reflector.
Oh.
The actual light is not important.
All right. Good.
It's a light source.
Right. Perfect.
And by the way, big expensive studio lighting is not necessary. What's known as practical lights are really, really useful. And practical lights are any old lamp or light source you got knocking around the house.
Perfect.
A bedside table lamp, an overhead light, etc., etc. This is all light source.
Okay, I
In
like that.
exactly the same way that the sun is the cheapest light source. You know, it's not about expensive kit. It's just about knowing where to put that. So, Cassie, going back to this little composition here, your key light is illuminating, in this instance, the right side of the face. Now, any color or sculpture and definition in the cut is going to be focused on where the light is.
So wait a minute, say that one more, wait. Say that one more time, please, Andy.
The definition of your color and cut is going to be focused on where you put the light source.
Okay, makes sense.
So you could be doing something really, really interesting on the other side down by the neck, but your eye is not going to be drawn to that because your light source is drawing the eye to where to the brightest part.
Ah, got it. Which hence the reason you would say key, because it's the key light.
And a little fill light just gives the other side of the face. And if you were to light it a little bit lower, you'd get that little triangle there. And then you've got cheek definition. And cheek definition with a bit of makeup, either on a mannequin or on a model, is going to give definition to the other side of that of the face, which then will draw the eye to that part of the hair, sculpture, cut, or color.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The painting has that lighting in it. That's amazing.
Yeah, but he'd never seen any of your cold wax paintings, Joseph.
Oh.
This one's a really good one. This one is a butterfly lighting, really, really simple. And all this is really doing, this is one light, and you're putting the light kind of here, just below the chin.
Oh.
But what you're doing is you're bringing that light slightly further back. So the face is being illuminated, but look what light source you're getting on actually both sides of her hair and also within the loop of her band.
Yeah.
Where is that brim of light coming? Is that coming from the butterfly lighting, that brim of light that's in her fringe?
It's just coming from the butterfly lighting, which is essentially where you're putting that one light source. It's only one light.
I love it. I love it.
She does have a light at the back from the bottom, just giving her a bit of depth of field. But the lighting of that face is just one light source, and it's probably about 2 feet away, probably chest height, 2 feet away, just illuminating the face and giving really nice definition of both the left and the right side of the hair, and that that loop, that halo on the band.
I love it. Yep. Very, very good stuff, isn't it,
These
Cassie?
Really, really simple stuff. And again, and our last two, broad lighting, and we're going to flip through to short lighting. And all these are just natural photographic. These are one light source compositions. Just looking at how you can take one side and just give less intensity, so your eye will be drawn to the entire composition as opposed to just one area of the composition, if that makes sense.
It so makes sense. I'm so loving this. My hand is sore.
So if you've got something that you really want to specialize or highlight in a cut or a color that needs to be intense, dramatic, film noir, and you can draw the eye there in the photograph, then do something like a split lighting where the eye is drawn very closely into one particular area.
Yeah.
And if you've got a cut and a color which needs to be celebrated by the eye immediately, then you would take a short or a broad lighting, a left or a right lighting setup where the light is just a little bit further away, but you can see the whole, the eye is drawn to no particular area of the head and face.
Yeah,
I
and it's
really,
that really soft, just ever so slight shadow on our right side, but her left side, that just really shows off her definition in her face, and it's just beautifully done.
it is beautifully done. And it's a really stupid question I'm going to ask, but for some reason, I feel like it's out there. Her hair is very black. It's very straight, flat, but the lighting still gives a highlight movement. Now, Andi, if they're shooting someone that has texture, bold ringlets, not tight curl, that has no hindering to what lighting you use. It's you as the artist that has to see the effect you're shooting for, basically, right?
I think so. I think so, Joe, because, you know, lighting is lighting, hair is hair, and yes, of course, you know, there are certain looks that you want to create that may need different effects, different lights, you know, maybe dry ice and smoke, and any number of, you know, paraphernalia. But fundamentally, what can you do with one light source? A lot. Does it matter?
Yeah.
Does it matter what kind of hair and texture of it is? Fundamentally, no.
Love it. I love that.
And so now let's, you know, this can go either way. It can go live model, it can go mannequin. So let's also reach out to, like, you have a live model, like how important with this lighting is the makeup? Should you set your lighting up first and then go ahead and do your makeup, set up the lighting, see what do you recommend?
Well, Cassie, it's important for your students to understand that I am not a fashion photographer per se, okay? I'm a filmmaker and photographer who does lighting, who understands lighting. But do I work a lot with models? I mean, I have done, of course I have. But my focus is lighting. I personally, you may have to ask a stylist about this. You know, but obviously, one thing influences the other.
Right.
You know, I personally would say you've got to bring in your model exactly how you want he or she to be, and you light with that.
Accordingly. Good. Awesome. Very good.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Because, you know, otherwise, but here's the thing. This is where lighting is just a tool. And your lights are just, you know, little tools you use. It's what's in your creativity, which is the most important thing. And honestly, I've got such great shots from, you know, a flashlight and a reflector that you can buy for $15 on Amazon, and, you know, the amazing amazing wow images you can get just by these little smoke and mirror things.
Yeah, this was really, I mean, this is really, really important. I mean, we could talk about this for a while. I think one of the things, you know, I know someone that I'm always saying, why do you always take a picture of your work in front of a brown brick wall? I mean, it's like this person feels that is and not that it's wrong or right, but isn't there like a law that when you really want to show off your work, you put something less busy and texturized behind you, or not?
Well, I think Joe's, here's an interesting thing that I would like to bring up here is there's a lot you can do in post-production. And I don't think post-production should be discounted in any way. And again, these are really, really simple, free apps. So in answer to your question, Joe, there's a depth of field and bokeh is an important thing for your students to learn. I'm just going to reshare my screen again, if you don't mind.
No.
Okay, so here we have. So here we have a Chris Silby mannequin head that nothing has happened apart from Chris has given it a comb, and it's stuck here in our lounge in Oxford, UK. And it's a
She's
beautiful.
happy to be there. She's very happy to be there.
They're
Well,
Christmas
you can see, you can see she's looking out at the rain thinking, wow, how long's lockdown gonna last? Gee. So she is. Now, there's no light on that. You know, there's no light apart from natural light, etc., etc. But when you take her into an app like Lightroom or Photoshop, you see, you know, this has no light at all. There is a bit more drama in that.
Right.
And that is the best part. I mean, we all know how to use apps and photo apps. We've got some definition on the cut, and we've got some, you know, depth of field, some blurriness in the background, and a little bit of color difference, which takes about a minute. You know, again, think about composition and think about how you can,
right,
you know, highlight and light in post-production as well. Can be done, you know, and it doesn't take a lot. And I think, Joseph and Cassie, I think your students, I think, will inevitably just, you know, become photographers and digital manipulators as their career.
I think so, yeah, and that is such a wonderful thing for you to say, Andy. Right now, iConixxx is working on. Cassie and I have been asked to be a part of a national competition, and we're going to title it iConixxx Student Contest. And all of the students that are going to participate are going to be using a mannequin head, right? In fact, I'm encouraging Chris Sorby's mannequins because of the less density around the front. They're more realistic. The colors lift really good, and they can get a lot of brilliance in their after effect. However, all of what you just said, 100%, I think, Cassie, you'd agree with me right now, because we were talking about this the other day. Everything you just said could really, really be important to how they shoot that mannequin head. Matter of fact, I see where we may have to reword some things, because one, well, they couldn't do black and white because they're showing off a pretty color that's going to be on their cut. But what you say is, realistically, it doesn't have to be a 360. I mean, if you can see the shape and if you can see the brilliance of the color just here, I think that would be fair to say that's judgeable. Would you not think?
Definitely. I would, definitely.
I like this. This is really cool.
Yeah, lots of, I mean, and here's the beautiful thing about it. I think when, especially our younger students coming out, when you think about, oh my God, I got to do a photo shoot, they hear photo shoot and they think their backdrop, like Andy's backdrop right there. And my boom isn't big enough.
Wait, yeah, you got there before me, Cassie. I was just going to ask again. Does my boom look big enough in this?
My boom.
Oh, you know what? If we all had a boom like you, Andy, that's all I'm going to say.
My boom was as big as your boom, babe.
Boom, boom, boom. Look at Andy in his room.
Bottom line is, Andy, you just made everything so, like, I think they can do their color and cut, but to have to photograph it themselves, you just make the ease. You put the ease in it because the light source, just a candle, whatever you have, you don't need to have a huge backdrop like that, which I still, after hearing this, I'm like, oh, you don't. Wow. That's crazy.
You really don't, and you don't need expensive cameras, and you know all of our smartphones. You know that the technology is crazy good, perfectly acceptable in this sense. Your lighting, as discussed, and then just think about interesting setups. You know, if you're working with a model, then hey, go outside, be different, not against that brick wall. Be a little bit different. And then if it's a mannequin head, well, hey, you know, maybe turn it upside down. And if it's a cut, actually show the cut as on the upside down, as well as how you cut it.
Wow.
Cut it the same way.
Wow.
Very great knowledge. It would be really cool to be able to share those 6 different looks, like on the website, or for students or whoever other stylists to reference. So Andy, thank you. This was so great.
Yeah, and that is valuable. And I know our time's getting short. We have about 15 minutes, but I want to jump into, you're famous and you are very awarded for a lot of the work that you've done, and I'm sure still working on. But is there a rumor or something I heard about something about the Queen of England and you?
Well, first of all, I'm not famous, Joseph. I'm married to someone famous. And yes, there is a rumor about the Queen of England and me. And the Queen of England is doing very well. She's just come out of surgery, okay? But she's doing well, and I'm looking after her. The other girl, you mean the one down in, I got no idea. What, the one with the son who got mixed up with Jeffrey?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, no, I've no idea. No idea.
I thought that didn't she win an award, a film award that had something to do with something she was labeled on? No?
I might have to cut this out of the, I've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
You can cut it out. I thought that there was like a Queen Award film something, and you entered your film into this, and maybe not.
No, not only. Okay, so you're mixing your continents, Joseph. But you're right. I didn't say you were incontinent. I have 2 very good
Leave
friends.
that in.
I have 2 very good friends who run the Queens World Film Festival in Queens, New York, the most multicultural borough in the US.
Oh.
And I was screening 2 of my documentary films at the Queens World Film Festival in New York in 2018, March of, when I got to meet my very own Queen of Manhattan, now Queen of England.
Got it. So there was so you knew where I was coming from. I just didn't know how to get it out.
And you have a lot on your plate. So I got there in the end. Right there with you. Yes.
Somebody ask the question, Joseph, before we wrap up. If the time capsule. So
yeah. Andy.
Yeah.
So there's someone in a park that has their little scanner, and they stop and they scan. They hear that little ticking, and they go to dig, and they find a can a little bigger than this, and they open it up, and it says in it certain well-known people in the film industry, whether you want to say that you're not or not, but we'll just go ahead and say that in that can, underneath film director, producers, and lighting extraordinaire, is Andi Reiss. And how would you like them to read about what it is that you left as a footprint, or maybe something that was a landmark? What would you like them to read about you and take away of who really you are?
Well, whether I've succeeded at it or not, Joseph, who's to tell? But I made a very conscious decision. I had a few things that went on in my childhood. In fact, for example, my best childhood friend was killed in a car crash when we were both 5 years old, and so I was introduced to the idea of mortality at quite an early age, and a lot of me thought, I've got to try and do something that really means something. And I don't know really what that meant. And perhaps I've always been too earnest, and perhaps that's the reason why I've not become famous. But I would like to continue making films and art and or music and or something creative and or writing that that can make some difference in a small way to a minority community. You know, for example, it would be fantastic to something that hasn't been told, a story that hasn't been told that needs to be told, and perhaps I'm the only person either brave or stupid enough to tell it. I'd like to be. That's what I'd like to have wrapped up and written within that time capsule.
I think you can stop right there, because you know what, young man? I think what you just said is what is sort of happening to all of us, because the truth be told, there's a lot of industry icons that are in many industries that are not always recognized. And for what you are doing for iConixxx, as well as what all of us are doing, is leaving, I think you're doing it. I do. And I commend you for it.
I think iConixxx, guys, is in the future will be seen as a really great historical archive and a piece of an era, and it's a snapshot of time. And you know, what crazier a time to document than the 2020, 21s and beyond. And it's fantastic. And you know, I look, because I edit these sessions every Tuesday, so I get a chance to read and watch and listen to everything that's going on, and I'm reading about the artist, etc., etc. And I'm just thinking, wow, you know, this is gold dust. This is a treasure chest of a wealth of information here. It's fantastic.
It is.
Grateful for you, Andi. Thank you so much for marrying the most wonderful woman in the world and being part of this team.
Hey, listen, it's no bother. It's okay. It's all right.
And then bringing us into your family.
Right.
Thanks for thanking me, Kathy. Really, it wasn't a bother. And thanks for having us. She is the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's doing well. But it's so good, and I have learned an enormous amount of, about the hair industry that I didn't know, and two, I was certainly ignorant of any cliche that I might have had in my mind before.
Yeah. And you know, I'm going to be so bold to say, for those of you that are listening and wondering who the queen is and who is famous that Andi's married to, because it's equivalent, they're both, but that would be Chris Sorby, and she is normally with me on iConixxx, but due to a little hiccup in her health, and she's coming back, Cassie was so beautiful to fill in today. But yes, Chris Sorby is probably one of the most amazing colorists that this world ever provided, and certainly she is what would you call, modest?
Yeah, she's a beautiful soul. I mean, just the living, wonderful, so conscious of others, and she's just one of a kind.
And she adores being a part of iConixxx, absolutely adores it. And to bring her, you know, to bring her experience and her ability and her personality to this is fab.
Yeah, it is. So we all send out a big healing hug.
Big hug.
I'm sure you'll get that to her. And I personally, Andi, want to thank you very much for taking the time, because I know it's late where you are right now, but you know what? You speak like it's morning or afternoon. It's never really a time of the day. Your energy, amazing. Knowledge, don't ever think it's simple, because from where I come from, I've been taking photos for a long time, but I'll be doing them differently tomorrow. That's for sure. And I will encourage every academy to play this, because we will have this contest coming out, and I want them all to hear what you had to say, because that only makes the judges' work harder.
And if any of your students want to write to me, then you have my email address, and I can always, I'm more than happy to to give some advice or hook up with them on Insta or Facebook. And if there's anything they need, just let me know. All
Yeah,
cool.
I think that's brilliant. And we'll see if the editor of this can possibly put your email up on here somewhere, because I think that's really, really nice, because there'll be some questions and you could really, really, really make a difference in someone's skill set when it comes to photography. So
I've
close.
dropped him a line before, Joseph. You know about the editing. He's not. He's difficult. He's difficult. This editor's difficult at the best of times. Prickly.
I know it, and he
work.
needs to get. Yeah, it's all about his boom. Like, he walks around proud with his boom.
I know.
But you know what? When it comes down to it, he's full of knowledge and will answer your questions. So reach out to him if he certainly is giving you that privilege and honor to email him. Hello, good person to have in your contacts.
Oh, get away with you. Listen, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on this.
Thank you.
Wonderful platform, iConixxx. Cassie,
thank you.
Joseph, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. And on behalf of Cassie and myself, we want to wish you a great evening. Please say hello to the Queen, and we will be back next week. So as always, go to YouTube, iConixxx Live, and check out all the other documentaries that we have there. They're all valuable. And this certainly was one of the top ones. So thank you, Andy.